Hello, and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I saw a change in you. It's like you never had wings.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Manhunter, which came out in 1986, written and directed by Michael Mann and based on the book Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Will Graham, a former police psychologist who has been asked to come back to look over a case perpetrated by the Tooth Fairy, played by Tom Noonan. As Graham starts to localize where the Tooth Fairy may be, he has to go back to a former adversary and ask him for advice.
So this is the first movie in the Hannibal Lecter series of movies.
Yeah,
Except this one's not really considered
Hannibal
in
Lecter.
the Hannibal Lecter series of films because it's not Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
Well, originally this film was called Red Dragon, the same as the book.
Yeah.
But Dino De Laurentiis was just like, Red Dragon? He released a film the year previous called Year of the Dragon.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
And it didn't do very well,
No.
that Mickey Rourke film. And so he was like, well, we're not going to call that Red Dragon, we'll call it Manhunter instead.
Kind of makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. But then it's because of that, I think that this film has kind of been forgotten. Like, when anyone now thinks of Hannibal Lecter, you think of Silence of the Lambs, you think of Red Dragon, and you think of Hannibal, whether it's Mads Mikkelsen or whatever, and you forget about Brian Cox, and you forget about this film.
Yeah. I'd only heard about this one after I'd seen Silence of the Lambs. And I think I only got around to actually watching it after I'd seen Hannibal.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 90s, Silence of the Lambs drops and you're like, oh my god, this is one of the most terrifying horror movies ever made. Anthony Hopkins, who is this guy? Well, as a young guy, I'd never seen this guy before, but here he is, eating people's faces, and chasing after Jodie Foster. I was like, this is amazing. The next film in the series comes on, and like I said, I'd heard about Manhunter, but nobody had a copy. I couldn't find it anywhere. And, the books were out. I considered reading the books, but I didn't want to go to that place.
Sure.
And then I watched Hannibal, and in fairness, I mean, I'm not doing a review of it now, but I always felt like that one was a bit too Hollywoodized.
Yes.
It was, I mean, it's Julianne Moore coming back instead of Jodie Foster.
Right.
And it just seemed to be like, hey, look, we're this is the sequel to Silence of the Lambs, and to me, it didn't do well. So I finally got round to watching Manhunter, and this is before Red Dragon came out. So obviously, sitting down to watch Manhunter for the first time, I'm like, okay, it's before Silence of the Lambs, so it looks older. And who's Brian Cox? I've seen this guy before, but who is he? And then it's more the story between Will Graham and the Tooth Fairy, this film. Lecter's in the background, but like Gary said, it's only when Anthony Hopkins established it that everyone would be like, yes!
Now we want more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this film, it starts off with Will Graham, and if you don't know the background story, this is at the point in time where Will Graham has already captured Hannibal Lecter. And he's been locked up. But because Will Graham, the way that his mind works is that he puts himself in the position of these serial killers that he's trying to capture.
Yeah.
And as a result, he needs a lot of time off work.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's been in the mind of Lecter, and he's retired now, and it's that age-old trope where the police turn up at his door and it's like, we need you for one more job, because this serial killer we just can't get a grip on.
But there's something about Michael Mann's writing. I mean, you said he kind of
wrote the screenplay.
The screenplay. I really, really enjoy Manhunter a lot more than I enjoy Red Dragon, and for this review, I actually watched both.
Sure.
Back to back. And, one is just a glorified remake. This one, this opening sequence with William Petersen. Now, William Petersen would go on to play in CSI. Grissom, I think he is.
Yeah.
And the success of that show was all because William Petersen's character was the guy who looks at all the evidence and studies the crime scene really in depthly, and the audience just ate that stuff up. So it really works that this is kind of Grissom's origin story.
Sure.
You've got Dennis Farina playing Jack Crawford.
Yeah.
His old buddy from the Force, and Jack Crawford I love because he was in Snatch.
Right.
You know, he's the American in that movie. The two of them just sat there at this beach, and he's just like, we need you back. Because we'd already seen in the opening sequence, which is filmed really well, an intruder walking into a house.
Felt like a snuff movie.
Yeah, I totally forgot that was the beginning. So like I'd got my cup of tea, I'd got my sandwich, got my notepad, sit down, and then it starts like this, and I see this intruder walking into this house and seeing the family there, and I'm like, oh fuck yeah, he kills families and children, doesn't he? And I almost turned the film off.
Right.
You know, because I didn't want to go to that place again. You know, I don't want to see through the eyes of somebody who actually really gets off doing this nasty shit. And when Crawford is explaining it to Graham, like, did you hear about the families? There's been two of them, both killed over like a month apart at full moons. You know, he entered in, there was no real noise, and this is what he did to the bodies. And like I said, you don't know about the history of Lecter at this point. But to me, you know, when I'd watched it the first time, I was experienced with burnt out cops.
Sure.
You know, I'd seen a few in my time. I'd seen a few Riggs and Murtaughs in my time. That when I looked at Graham, I'm like, something happened to him. And he doesn't want to go back, but he's the best at what he does.
Right. But then the film does turn into, you know, a police procedural where it's like he's looking at the evidence and he's like, did you scan for fingerprints? No, we didn't find any. We'll get this guy in. This guy knows how to find fingerprints. He was like, I'm pretty sure he took off his gloves and touched the bodies.
Well, yeah, but that's over a time of us following him around the house.
Yeah.
You know, we settle into his mind.
Yeah.
The way he thinks, the way the killer
It's like his superpower where he can just be the serial killer and know what the serial killer did in that room.
Well, it's not that. I mean, it's more so of, you know, thinking how they think and just re-walking over the same evidence over and over again. This is why this guy got burnt out.
Yeah.
Because he started to kind of understand and justify what these guys do. And so when you walk into that bedroom and the light flicks on and there's just blood, and he starts to go into a bit more detail about what happened. You know, the husband was killed first. He shot the kids in bed. You know, he inserts glass into the eyes of the victims. I mean, you know, it only really focuses on the women.
Yeah.
You know, but you don't really need to see it that much either. Like I said, I watched the remake and there was a bit more blood and guts to really hit home. Where in this one, the focus on Graham's face, you know, you can tell that he's thinking about his own family at the same time.
Sure.
You know, but yeah, the realization as well that he took his hat, the killer took the glove off because he had to touch her, and so he's got a partial fingerprint. That's what I really love about this movie more than others. Is, I don't know, is it Michael Mann who you know, he did Heat, didn't he?
Yeah.
Now Heat is just a brilliant portrayal of cops versus robbers. For me, Manhunter is like, here's the cops, but they're just establishing fingerprints and hair and DNA and saliva. You know, this is 1986. They haven't got a national-wide database yet. But we're seeing the birth of it. So just that little talcum powder, the little fingerprint, and now we got to get this guy. Yeah.
Thumbprint came off the oldest kid's left eye. It stood out against an 8-ball hemorrhage from the gunshot wound.
Can we make an identification off of it?
Maybe.
But of course it does lead to, you know, one of the greatest sequences in the film where can't quite understand the serial killer, which they're calling the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
And so it's decided that he should have a meeting with his old friend Hannibal Lecter in order to try and get Hannibal's insight into the Tooth Fairy.
Well, yeah, because I mean, in background, Hannibal Lecter, before he was captured, was the best at what he did.
Yes.
You know, he's the best criminal psychologist. You know, he sees through the eyes of the people themselves.
Right. And I just, you know, this whole set piece is just fantastically filmed. You know, it's like a mirror. You know, it's basically two men either side of the metal gate.
Yeah.
And no matter which side the camera's on, there's a complete symmetry from either side. So you're just like, now which one's in jail? You know, which one?
Yeah. I didn't notice that. I was just so, it's just I suppose.
Almost every single scene in this film has been structured, and the camera's been placed in a certain position in order to emulate the feeling of the scene.
Yeah.
Whether it's the love scene where it's just them in bed and you've got the tints of blues, to them in the cells where it's just completely white. It just looks really clean.
Yeah. And then you get the shocking sequences where you are on the crime scenes or you're walking around the house and just you feel like you're watching.
Yeah.
You are watching. You're the audience, but no, you're studying. Like everything is focused on these two, for example, Brian Cox and William Petersen. I know Brian Cox isn't the best Lecter because I've seen partially better.
Well, it's because he only has 2 scenes really in the whole film.
Oh, yeah, true.
But what I would say about Brian Cox's performance is that his seems the most grounded and the most realistic out of all of the Lecters.
But what I mean is, what I was going to say was, there's little things that he has that you'll see later on. Sure. So like his slicked back hair is the same kind of slicked back hair that Anthony Hopkins has in Red Dragon. Yeah. The way they deliver their dialogue is just the same. It's just a little hint of confidence in what I can do, and also a little bit of pissed off because I'm behind these bars because you caught me,
right?
And I was so good at what I did. How did you catch me? And you can see that it's just the competition, even though it's only little bits in this movie. I just. From the moment he walks away, he leaves him the case file and says, have a look at it, see what you think, and just walks away. Lecter's now on his shoulder.
Yeah,
like whispering in his ear, "Do you dream, Will?" I'm like, "Fuck you, get out of my mind."
Don't think you can persuade me with appeals to my intellectual vanity.
I don't think I'll persuade you at all. You'll either do it or you won't.
But we soon find out that the Tooth Fairy is a massive fan of Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah. I partial problem with this. I couldn't. It's the one thing I can't figure out.
Okay.
Now they find a note in Lecter's cell that the Tooth Fairy is sent to him, an avid fan, and it's written on toilet paper.
Yeah.
So it's easy to dissolve because there's information in there for Lecter to talk back to the Tooth Fairy. Now, how the fuck did he get the toilet paper? Because so they check all his mail. This is a serial fucking psychopath. He is on lockdown. He's not going anywhere. He's like checked every day, so he's not going to kill himself. They want to keep him locked up for the rest of his life. Okay, he's under maximum security. And you're telling me that one day somebody went, "Oh, there's a letter for Lecter. Yeah, we'll just give it to him. We're not going to open it or check it. Oh, we're going to check it? Yeah. Oh, look, it's toilet paper. It's just nothing." In both Red Dragons, it was the only thing that I was like, "Hey, wait, how did he get the toilet paper?" Because he keeps it. He rolls it up. And it's like Will Graham will say later on, he kept that letter because it was full of compliments.
Right.
He got rid of the information that he needed to so that he can talk back and forth to the Tooth Fairy. But he kept this. And I don't know if you see it in this one, but you do see it in Red Dragon, where he'd had it rolled up in a toilet roll in his room, But I was like...
Yeah.
No, nothing.
I have no idea.
Toilet paper. Yeah, right, okay, we'll just carry on then.
Even there's a corrupt guard.
Yeah, or they just don't check his mail. But the cops find this letter from the Tooth Fairy to Lecter, and then they take it off for scanning. And it's so brilliant because they've only got a short amount of time.
Well, it's because they've isolated Lecter so that he wouldn't realise that they found his toilet paper.
Yeah, they're just doing a room search,
and are trying to figure out the code. So they've got to get the toilet paper, get the code, be able to write a message, and get the toilet paper back in Lecter's room, put Lecter back in there without him realising what they've done.
Yeah.
Except it's Hannibal Lecter, and he knows exactly what's going on.
Oh, yeah, he left the letter there. You were just playing his game.
Right.
But it's the whole, it's the whole working out. I just love the chase sequence, like I said, at this time in 86, you hadn't really seen the background of what cops did. They literally just had it handed to them half the time, and then they jumped in the car and drove off at high speeds. This guy's now studying it, using a UV blue light to look for hairs and saliva, and then finding the teeth sample at the end where he's bit it as a fan. And I was amazed. Who the reporter was.
Right.
Like, I'm sat there and I'm like, I have Brian Cox, Will Graham, that dude from Snatch, Lowndes is the reporter. That's Stephen Lang. That's the guy from Avatar. That's not the guy from Avatar, Gary. Look, the hair is completely different, Gary. There's no way those two guys. Like, seriously, it threw me for like 20 minutes.
Like, really? That's him?
But it's then, they're using now that information. They've got the letter back into Lecter's cell. They're going to just let it go, isn't it? They're just going to let the two of them communicate, but they're going to use the reporter Lowndes to kind of pull the killer out. Yeah. And so they drop some really derogatory, nasty comments about the Tooth Fairy, which Lowndes is like, yeah, I don't give a shit, man. I'm a badass. And then he just ends up at the Tooth Fairy's fucking lair, basically. The Tooth Fairy just gets him. And
we have that sequence where he's in the car park, don't you? You see him getting picked up. And that's like when you realise how strong the fairy is. Just holding him up. You see his feet suspended.
Yeah, don't call him the fairy, Gary.
No.
Let's just call him the Tooth Fairy. But I realised at this point as well, it's literally an hour into the movie. You've been following just the cops.
Yeah.
All the way through. It's like 56, 57 minutes. All the way through, it's just cops. And the Tooth Fairy's in the background. And you've been talking to Lecter. And then... boom, here we go, 1 hour sequence, here's the big reveal. Tom Noonan stood there with half a tite on his head.
Right.
Scarred lip. And, I mean, Ralph Fiennes kind of takes it a bit more extreme in the remake with that whole back body tattoo, but...
Well, the thing is, they did actually have Tom Noonan in the Red Dragon tattoo.
Really?
But when they played back the footage, they were just like, that's so over the top. Like, Tom Noonan doesn't need it.
No.
Take it away, and Tom Noonan sells it on his own.
He does.
So in the remake, though, I guess they were just like, the Red Dragon tattoo's on the killer, so put it on there.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, it's the name of the film.
Well, that's it. But it's a lot of focus. There's a hell of a lot of focus on the William Blake painting.
Sure.
The Red Dragon and the woman in the white.
Was the Tooth Fairy kind of wants to become the Red Dragon?
Yeah. And you kind of, like, you don't know the background history of why he's like this. But if you're like me and you're an avid film watcher and you've seen all matters of psychopaths running around, you kind of establish that it's not because he's having a bad day. This is years and years of rage and emotion and abuse all boiled up until he just focused on one thing and his mind broke.
Oh yeah.
And here he is, he's wanting to become this dragon, and by inserting mirrored glass into dead women's eyes and having sex with them in the moonlight kind of does that. No,
it does in the mind of a killer who's lost his mind.
And this movie really focuses on that. There's a sequence later on that really shows that he's just fucking. But he's captured Lowndes and he's fucking glued him to a wheelchair, and he's basically just revealing himself to Lowndes. Like, I am not any of those things that you said I am. I am this, or I'm wanting to become this. And it's such a stellar performance.
Do you see?
Yeah, do you see?
Do you see?
Yes.
Mrs. Leeds, do you see?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacoby, do you see?
But it's like you said. It was like you said at the beginning. This movie's been kind of forgotten, and I'm like, no. Once you watch it, you're like, oh, whoa, I can see where it all went from this, because he reveals himself and then he puts those teeth in, and he becomes the Tooth Fairy or the shark or whatever, and he bites,
dragon.
Bites well, it's implied that he bites Lowndes, and Lowndes is screaming, and then he just rolls him off on fire.
You see him for just a few frames, really.
Yeah.
A second, maybe, of film.
But it's enough.
Yeah.
Like I said, I watched both of them in comparison, and both of them only last a couple of seconds. It's just the image of this person on fire. But where Manhunter actually, because in Manhunter you'd had the relationship between Graham and Lowndes, because Lowndes had taken photos of him in hospital after his attack by Lecter. So Graham hated him because it meant, Graham's name is all in the papers and everybody knows him, and that's what he wants to avoid. He wants to keep his family safe. And the fact that, we'd already seen Lecter trick his maximum security place to giving him a phone and giving out the address and finding out the address of Graham and handing it to the Tooth Fairy through the personal ads.
Right.
And then having to put Will Graham's family into protective custody. You're like, oh shit, he's going to hate him. Well, he's going to be happy that Lance is dead, but it's the concern as well. Like, did he say anything before he died? And the guy's like, no, because he was missing his top lip.
Right.
But they've got this recording now that he has seen the dragon and it is real, and the things he's going to do to Graham is going to pale in comparison to what he does to Lowndes. It's like,
yeah. And so then Will Graham, he's running, he's heading back to his family, he's making sure they're okay, he's moving them out of their Florida home, their retirement home, they're kind of in police protective custody kind of thing. And then he's shopping with his son, and his son's just like, what's wrong with you, Daddy? And he explains to him like exactly where his mind's been and the reason why he's the way he is and the reason why he's doing what he's doing. And his son really is quite accepting of it. The way it's
it's
put
an
to
amazing
him.
sequence. Just the honesty of, look, this is my job.
Yeah.
Basically, my job is to think how these fucking sickos think, and I catch them that way. I'd do it if I was a criminal psychologist, but I'm just not going there. And the kid is kind of old enough to understand because he saw his dad in hospital.
Right.
He saw his when he was injured, and he saw his dad in hospital when his mind broke. What got me though more with this sequence is, did you notice the continuity error?
No.
It was great. They're walking down the aisle talking. And, there's like food and cereal on either side. And behind the boy, there's all coffee. And it never changes. It's always coffee when the camera's focused on the boy. And it focuses on Will Graham for a second, and it's cereal. And then when it flicks back to the boy, it's coffee. And then when it flicks back, Graham's moved to another part of the aisle, and it's a different background. And it cuts back to the boy, and he's in the same part. And then back to the dad, and he's back with the cereal. And I was like, oh, my blood. Like I was so intently staring at the scene, I noticed a massive...
Well, I mean, there's a lot of weird cuts in the film that are very deliberate, and I'm guessing that one is an accident.
Yeah. Like I said,
it's like right near the beginning when Will Graham's like looking at the video footage or the tape of the family.
Yeah.
And there's like a really weird jump cut. Where it's like he's like, you can tell he's moved or time has passed.
Yeah.
And the film does that at quite a few different points in the film.
Yeah.
And you're just like, it's unsettling. It kind of shakes you out of of your experience a little bit, and you can only think it's deliberate. And why is the film kind of jarred you that way?
Maybe to wake you up, just in case you were too
comfortable.
Too comfortable. Like, I know, and it's going to throw you up. Because he Will returns back into the hunt for the Tooth Fairy after leaving his family in protective custody. But the Tooth Fairy, Tom Noohan's character, Francis Dolarhyde, works at a camera development place. You're one of those big factories that you send your photos and home video, negatives to get processed. And this is where he has garnered the information for these families. He's watched the videos, he's broken into their house and killed them. But he meets a work colleague called Reba, played by Joan Allen, who it took me a while, but I recognized as the wife from Face Off. I was like, I know your face. And she plays a kind of a blind work processor, I suppose. And he'd never met her before, but he's immediately attracted or taken aback by the fact that, he's probably spent his life believing that because of his cleft lip, everybody hates him, and this is the only, going out and having sex with dead women's bodies is the only way he's accepted, or whatever. But now he's met a blind chick in the first time in his 40 years of his life and gone, oh my God, she can't see my lip and she likes me for who she thinks I may be, which is a bit weird.
Yeah.
But it leads into a nice relationship because I kind of believe that Reba is looking for it.
Well, yeah, she's looking for companionship as
Yeah.
well. And this is where the film, it's the whole kind of Michael Mann Heat thing, isn't it?
Yes,
Where it's just like,
yes.
you sympathise with the cops, then you sympathise with the robbers. And then you're just like, oh, do I care which team wins
But
in
the
this
thing-
dispute? And now you're being led to sympathise with the killer.
No. See now, this is what I got from Manhunter. First time I watched it, and what allowed me to kind of change my perspective when it came to serial psychopaths is I don't sympathize him. I just understand that he's a product of his environment. The remake would go into a deeper understanding of him being abused as a child, but Manhunter doesn't do that. But I kind of already knew that.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like they say it's your normal average Joe who goes out and does this, but you don't. You don't just pick up a yogurt and go, I don't like that flavor, I'm going to kill my neighbor. Maybe, possibly. But this film kind of explains to me that this has been building up for years, and now he's gotten to this position that his mind is snapped and he can use his position of power to break into the family's home with all the information he needs and do these nasty things. And now he's found Reba, and I still don't sympathize with him, but I'm like, now you've got a proper relationship.
Well, it starts that way, yeah.
Well, yeah, he's like, oh, I'm not gonna do my next kill,
Right.
Even though he's studying the fucking family while he's getting it on with Joan Allen's character, and I'm like, okay, movie, I need to step out of the darkness for a bit, okay,
Well, there is a nice sequence where he takes her
Yes.
to the tiger.
Yes.
And the actual veterinarian in the film is played by an actual veterinarian.
Nice.
It's a real tiger, and it's been sedated, and she just gets to, get intimate with this tiger.
Yeah.
Just to feel around with her hands and just get real close to it.
And
he's
bonding.
kind of
Yeah.
getting off on that as well. He's kind of imagining himself as the tiger.
Yeah.
But then their relationship does become sexual as well, because at first he was afraid of her even touching his face.
Yes.
Because that's how blind people, they.
Yeah.
And but then you have that sequence afterwards where he takes her hand and he's putting it on his face, and you're just like, oh, maybe now he'll stop his evil killing ways.
Yeah. No, it's still in there. It's so in depth because it's like when he wakes up the next morning and she's not in the house and he has to search for her. And that was a great shot. I thought I was really, Michael Mann was when the camera was widescreen with the two of them right in the distance, and then it just zoomed in. Graham is still wanting to find him. We're following the cops. He needs to stop him, and there's that sequence where he goes to drop his Joan home, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's seeing her talking to her work colleague, but it's like Michael Mann blew my mind, but just the white light just shining, because her light is being taken by somebody else, but it really said to me like, he's gone.
Yeah.
Tom Noonan is woo. He's like 2 steps away from being Kane again from RoboCop 2, so just let him be. But Graham is starting to establish now, he's understanding where he is. Like, why did you get the bolt cutters? Why did you bring the bolt cutters with you? You didn't use them. You didn't use those bolt cutters. You watched the family. You knew that the dog, that was their dog. How did you know that was their dog? It had no collar on. And he's watching the footage intently. And it's then the realization that obviously that's where he's getting the information from. He works for this company.
And so he tracks down and isolates where the film is being scanned and processed.
Yeah.
And that alerts all the police, because they've also got a partial match on the driver's license.
Yeah.
And so they narrow down all the way to his address.
Yes.
And so then, the chase is on to just to get there now. But Tom Noonan has gone, we've had that moment with him outside of Reba's place.
Yeah.
And the jealousy you see in him as he rips up the dashboard of the car, the frustration, the jealousy, the anger.
Francis is gone. Francis is no more. I'm like, okay. He just nails that work colleague. Like, oh, hey, Mr. Dolarhyde. oh shit.
Yeah.
And I forgot how much I loved this last sequence.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, if you've never heard In Legado da Vida by Iron Butterfly before, which is what, 17 minutes long, the
Yeah.
original song, you really should listen to it in its entirety. Whichever way you want to do it, you know, recreational or not, it's up to you. But he takes Reba back, and she's blind. I mean, Joan Allen really plays.
She sells it, yeah.
She sells it. Like, you know, she's just staring off intently. But, you know, I feel like to her, it's blackness. And the way, you know, Francis just kind of walks around in the background, you know, just completely silent, and then puts the music on to use it to cover him. It's completely jarring. And then the music's playing while the cops are racing there as well. And Graham has gone out of his way to get a lot of bullets, purposefully built stopping power bullets, because, you know, he doesn't want to be put in the same position as he was with Lecter. You know, he got close to Lecter, and it was just sheer luck that he was able to turn the tide and stop him, which, like I said, in the remake is filmed really well. I love that whole sequence. I don't know what it's like in the TV series, if it's...
It's like 3 seasons building up to it, or maybe 4.
Nice.
3 seasons.
Nice. But I get it from in the car when William Petersen's in there with the gun, and his partner Crawford's like, look, we'll take care of it. But he wants the dreams to stop. So he's going to shoot this guy. And the music's playing, and the dragon is emerging. And when it slows down, and he's running slowly to the window,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is class. I love it. Because as soon as he gets taken down by Tom Noonan just overpowers him, and then he just walks around with that shotgun blasting people.
Yeah, just blasting cops left, right, and center. Yeah. He kills like 3 or 4 cops, but then Will Graham does get the better of him.
Yes.
Just blasts him like repeatedly. And again, there's another one of those kind of awkward jump cuts, and it replays the same footage. Now, according to the cinematographer, they used like 3 or 4 different cameras, all recording at different frames per second, so that when all of them are jump cutted into the film, some of them are faster or a different frame rate.
It works
to the other,
for the music.
It does.
The way the guitar and all the keyboard and all the stuff of the song going on in the background, because it's just playing.
It's just chaos.
You know, like sometimes in films you really take for granted that they'll stop a song halfway through and then come back and it's all over the place. Where this one, it's like Michael Mann went, 17 minutes long, we're just going to play the whole thing for the ending sequence,
right?
As in the background, and he just bang 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 puts him down, and you're happy inside because, you know, Graham's got his man, Tooth Fairy's dead. Lecter's got nothing because he's a fucker, you know, and it's...
Well, he's got Silence of the Lambs to look forward to.
Yeah, and Hannibal, I suppose, you know. And
he's getting out.
Yeah.
So, Ian, on that note, favourite scenes from the movie?
I have quite a few. The first crime scene where Graham walks in, you know, why go look at it at night? You know, I study it better in the darkness, blood stands out. Maybe it fits better to think of the killer because the killer attacked at night. Did you recognise the guy who drove him there?
No.
That was the coach from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. He's also the general from Starship Troopers. It's like they want to know us so they can kill us. And I was like, there was a lot of different actors in the background. I was like, hey, I know that guy. Hey, I know that guy. But yeah, the studying the crime scene, the fact that blood's all over there, you know, the first time I watched it, like, I'd never really thought about stuff like that. You know, I suppose I'd gotten a hint of it from Silence of the Lambs, you know, the studying of the killer and how they think. And then I watched Manhunter, and that's where I kind of realized, like, I don't want to go that place, you know, because you really need to retread over the same stuff. Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter, their first meeting. You know, Lecter he has him there, basically. Even though Lecter's stuck behind bars, you know, he's got Graham by the nads, basically. And this is all reflected even more when Graham leaves, and it's that great shot of him running down the spiral staircase.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like...
Alice going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, he didn't want to go there, but he had to. You know, Lecter's the best. You know, Lecter's been fucking talking to the guy through toilet paper. So, the studying of the note, it's like so futuristic at this point.
For 1986.
For 1986, it was, you know, like the giant lenses. The way that, I love that the guy's like, you're so slick, but so am I. Because he's got all the different technology. And I'm like, yeah, that's...
He's got the blue light and the red light.
yeah. But then, you know, we needed that stuff. We always need that stuff because there are people like this out there who will bite dead bodies and do stuff. You know, the smarter they get, the smarter we have to get. They'll get smarter, but Sean Connery said it best. If one of them puts us in the ground, we put him in the fucking morgue. And just, you know, we get bigger and bigger. It was just really great studying.
He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
The taking out of Freddie Lowndes, I mean, ouch.
Yeah.
Tom Noonan, yeah, he's amazing. Like I know I really don't like Synecdoche, New York, whatever, but he was great in that.
Yes.
You know, and just him standing in front of him, like, I'm becoming. Imagine waking up, like at the beginning when you see the mum, like imagine waking up in bed and he stood there with a flashlight and a gun.
Right.
You know, I really love the sequence where Graham is staring into a window and it's raining outside.
Yeah.
And he's looking at himself and he's just like, it's just you and me now, sport. You know, like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. You came to my family. You were going to go to my home. Purposely, I'm going to do everything I can to get you. And then the whole ending sequence, you know, Iron Butterfly, it's great. Great.
yeah, it really is. Yeah, I got quite a few memorable sequences from the film as well. Pretty much the only scene with Will Graham and Hannibal.
Yeah.
You know, it just goes to show how great the two of them were together on screen.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just those characters that
character,
really work.
yeah.
But the actors really bring it to life. And you know, Brian Cox is an amazing actor, and he may be my weakest Hannibal Lecter.
No. You know the weakest one? It's the dude from Hannibal Rising, the kid. He's the worst.
Yeah,
he's the worst.
But I mean, Brian Cox's performance and the presence of Hannibal is felt throughout the rest of the film.
Yes.
Without him having any more sequences.
Yeah.
Whereas Red Dragon has lots more of Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal in the film.
Yeah.
Which, you know, with this film, it wasn't even needed.
No.
Like, his presence is still felt, and that's all from that one scene there. And then, of course, Hannibal, like, behind the scenes, you know, hacking the phone, basically, and making those calls, and, you know, and sweet-talking other people to get the information he needs.
Yeah, I mean, GDPR people, come on.
Right.
Just give me his home address. Okay.
But it's works. You believe that he can coax that information out of people.
Yeah.
The tiger scene, I really like that. That was
sequence.
It was a beautiful sequence. It really was. And the "Do you see?" torture sequence, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what it's horrifying because you see the teeth go in and you see him go over and bite the face, but then you know from there it's the burning man in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
But you're just like, what happened between being bitten on the face to being burning man in the wheelchair? It's just like, you know, for you as an audience, you're kind of really glad that you've just jumped to the end point. But there was a whole thing going on to there. You just don't want to think about.
It's the reality though that somebody somewhere gets paid to think about that shit.
Oh,
that's the reality, and if
that's Will Graham's job.
You know, yeah, exactly. And that's what I love because I'm just like, what drove that man to do that? And I'm like, who cares? Let's just kneecap him. Just get it out the way because he can't do it again. Okay, just not allowed. I don't care how much people love Hannibal Lecter. Eating people is wrong.
Well, he's not even called a cannibal in this film, is he? He's just somebody who's murdered like 9 women, I think.
Yeah, and Lecter's spelled differently. It's spelled
that
with
was
a K.
because they didn't know whether they were going to actually have the rights to the books and to actually have the rights to Hannibal Lecter. So they changed the name just a letter.
Yeah.
So they're like, it's different.
Yeah.
he's not a cannibal and it's spelled differently. So okay, got away with it. I'm definitely going to be recommending Manhunter. It's one of the most overlooked thrillers, and it arrived before the hugely successful Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Will Petersen is and does a fantastic job at portraying Will Graham.
Yeah.
And you become fully invested in his story. It's a great 80s nostalgia trip too, both aesthetically pleasing, matched with great cinematography. Tom Noonan also gives a great and memorable performance as the complex and interesting killer. Michael Mann does a fantastic job building up the tension and really lets you get to know the characters before the climax. The film might feel slightly dated now, but it is really still is a masterwork, and it is engaging from start to finish. This is a must-watch.
I definitely recommend Manhunter. I mean, if you're a fan of the Hannibal Lecter series, you have to watch Manhunter, or you just haven't completed the series. You know, you say what you want about Brian Cox. It's the Michael Mann delivery behind it all. Here's some script. Deliver those lines. I love the fact he's got that tiny little cell. It's like, fucking, how do you live like that? Well,
I think that's a visitor cell.
Yeah, but keep him locked up in there forever.
Right.
Forever, you know, because, you know, Tom Noonan, the Tooth Fairy, this film takes you on a place that if you don't want to go, don't. But, you know, if you want to go, be careful, because you, like I said, it's... Ooh.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
In a garden of freedom, honey, don't you know that I'm loving you? In a garden of freedom, baby, don't you know that I'll always be true?